Many students across the province return to school tomorrow from March break, and public health officials hope some of them will be coming back with up-to-date vaccines. As measles cases in Ontario spiked to their highest level in more than a decade, health authorities are now issuing suspensions for thousands of students who don't have records of routine immunizations. Sarah McMillan reports.
Inoculation against diseases like tetanus, polio, measles, mumps and rubella is routine for kids across the country. In Ontario, they're required to attend school unless you have an exemption, but many students are behind.
During the pandemic, we stopped vaccinating completely. We're all, concerned about COVID. All our activities are COVID related.
Health units across the province are now trying to catch up, sending reminders to thousands of parents, and in some cases sending out suspension letters if they haven't complied. In Toronto, the health unit sent out more than 18,000 letters for grade 11 students. In nearby Waterloo region, close to 9,000 suspension notices were sent out for elementary students. In Eastern Ontario, where hundreds of letters have been sent out, the Chief Medical Officer of Health says vaccine fatigue is likely a contributing factor.
We've had COVID vaccines, 5-6 doses. And with that, vaccine hesitancy came up. People are now just recovering. There's a lot of mental health issues in young children and school-age kids. We're trying to catch up.
For Jill Promoli, vaccine advocacy is personal. 9 years ago, her 2-year-old son died from the flu.
I think sometimes we don't realize how important it is that we do consider how serious these illnesses can be. And at the end of the day, I want people to have the information that they need so that they can make the best choices they can for their families, because I don't want other families to be in our shoes.
Low vaccine uptake is having consequences right now in Ontario, with a recent measles outbreak spreading through unvaccinated people.
If you talk about the flu, one person gets the flu, and if they might infect 2 people. This with the measles, one person can actually infect 17, 18 people.
While experts stress the importance of vaccination, record-keeping issues could explain some of the apparent low rates.
Many people are still using a yellow piece of paper that they have no idea where it is. It's, in some dresser drawer somewhere collecting dust for decades. And, there's no centralized way to keep track of this.
Still, the system of warnings and suspensions does seem to be working. Toronto Public Health says when it started trying to get 7- and 8-year-olds caught up on vaccines last year, the compliance rate was just 29%. Now, after notices and suspensions, it's up to more than 98%. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
The province's police watchdog has been called in to investigate an officer-involved shooting in Hamilton. It happened just before 4 p.m. in the area of Hunter and Spring Streets. Investigators say police responded to a call for an assault at an apartment building. Officers entered an apartment unit where they say they found a male suffering from stab wounds and a suspect with an edged weapon. Then at least one officer fired their weapon, hitting the suspect. The victim of the stabbing succumbed to his injuries. The suspect is alive and in hospital. The owners of the pub at the center of a mass shooting in Scarborough earlier this month are speaking out for the first time this weekend, issuing a statement on Instagram saying, quote, "We are heartbroken over what happened at our Scarborough Town Centre location on what was supposed to be a special opening night for our team and the community." Going on to say, quote, "The safety of our guests and staff remains our top priority. We are cooperating fully with authorities as they investigate, and we are relieved that no lives were lost. This kind of violence has no place in our community." Police have not provided suspect descriptions or announced any arrests more than a week after that shooting. They say 3 masked gunmen entered the pub around 10:40 p.m. and opened fire. No one was killed, but 12 people were hurt by bullets and broken glass. Some hit multiple times and some with life-altering injuries. Police say the suspects got into a vehicle and drove away. Its past goes back more than 3 centuries, but its future may last less than 3 months. An Ontario Superior Court will decide whether the Hudson's Bay Company can secure the financing it needs, a decision that will be watched closely by the company's more than 9,000 employees. The CBC's Lisa Shing reports.
It's an institution Canadians across the country say they'll miss.
That's too bad, because I grew up with Hudson's Bay, so it's pretty sad.
Family's been shopping here for generations. I've come for them. and that I'm sad to see it go.
Just 1 week after Hudson's Bay Company applied for creditor protection, hoping to keep the business afloat in some capacity, a dramatic development. It will start liquidating its entire business as soon as next week, beginning the process of closing all of its 80 stores.
This was one of the last of the department stores that reflected a Canadian identity.
We're coast to coast, shore to shore.
The Bay, founded in 1670, has its roots in the fur trade and saw success as a department store chain in the 1900s. But filings show the company had just $3 million in the bank at the start of this year, and it owes nearly $1 billion to creditors, including landlords, suppliers, and brands like Ralph Lauren and Estee Lauder. Its potential closure puts more than 9,000 jobs at risk across its stores, as well as all Saks Fifth Avenue and Saks Off Fifth locations, with no guarantee of severance or pension.
For the company to announce a potential liquidation so fast after filing before the court is unusually quick and very troubling. It does suggest that there's a serious financial problem.
In its court application, Hudson's Bay said it was struggling because of the drop in store traffic post-pandemic, people spending less, and the trade tensions between Canada and the U.S. In a statement, the company said it exhausted efforts to secure financing to pursue a restructuring, though it remained hopeful that could change.
It has become a nostalgia brand. And nostalgia, unfortunately, is a luxury that really most people won't afford in these kinds of times.
Pending court approval Monday, the retailer plans to close up shop by June 15th. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
2 days after his swearing in, Mark Carney is embarking on his first foreign visits as Prime Minister. He's meeting the leaders of France and Britain, but hanging over those talks, the rhetorical broadsides from the leader of the United States. JP Tasker reports.
Canada's new Prime Minister taking part in a centuries-old tradition, the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Montreal, as he grapples with a national crisis. Telling Radio-Canada it's an important moment for the country.
To be honest with you, Canada only works as a state.
Donald Trump is threatening to torpedo Canada's economy with more tariffs.
We can't control President Trump's behavior. We can control our behavior.
Canada's ambassador to the U.S. says Carney has a plan to save the country from economic ruin and annexation. But she says a Carney-Trump call to discuss those tensions won't happen right away.
Of course, he should talk to the president, and I hope that they do talk. Does it have to be, in the next 12 or 24 hours? No, it doesn't have to be.
Instead, Carney is headed to the UK and France this week to meet with what he calls reliable trade partners.
We're in a wartime footing right now.
At home, the new industry minister is promising to reduce Canada's dependence on the Americans.
We have to strengthen the Canadian economy like never before.
This is all happening as federal parties get ready for an expected election campaign. Some polls show Liberal support is surging. The Conservatives are pushing for the resumption of Parliament.
These doors have been padlocked by the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, trying to avoid the accountability and the scrutiny that comes with a sitting parliament.
According to CBC poll tracker projections, the NDP is losing ground. The party would win just 13 seats if an election were held now. Party leader Jagmeet Singh taking aim at Carney.
The choice is you have Mark Carney, who has shown you through his track record that he will make lots of profits for billionaires, but will throw workers to the side.
The Prime Minister is expected to call an election sometime in the next week. If so, Canadians could head to the polls in late April or early May. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
The threats from Washington in its trade war are compounding a fortnight ahead of the next volley of tariffs. And as Canada is bracing for the April 2nd date, so is the rest of the world. Katie Simpson reports.
The U.S. president spending the weekend at his golf club as the world learns more about his trade agenda.
We don't like the status quo. We are going to set a new status quo.
expect more industry-specific tariffs, and those already in place are likely to stick around, according to the U.S. Secretary of State.
There are critical industries like aluminum, like steel, like semiconductors, like automobile manufacturing that he rightfully believes, President Trump rightfully believes, the U.S. needs to have a domestic capability.
Fresh off his trip to Canada for G7 meetings, Marco Rubio says the Trump administration wants to redo trade deals with all of its partners.
We're going to reset the baseline, and then we can enter into these bilateral agreements, potentially, with countries so that our trade is fair.
That baseline is expected to be reset April 2nd, when Donald Trump says he will impose new tariffs based on what he calls fairness. Reciprocal tariffs for countries that tax U.S. goods and or have economic policies the Trump administration does not like. The plan shared with Canadian officials during a high-level meeting in Washington Thursday.
On April 2nd, there will be announcements that will affect the whole world, including Canada.
The uncertainty around trade making stock markets volatile, creating fear that everyday life in America is about to get more expensive. All of it dismissed by the U.S. Treasury Secretary.
What I was saying is the American dream is not let them eat flat screens. The American dream is not contingent on cheap baubles they have from China, that it is more than that, and we are focused on affordability.
For now, many Republicans publicly support Trump's effort, including a tax on Canada.
You know, our friends up north, and they are our friends in Canada, they are, as the president says, they are nasty negotiators. He thinks they did a heck of a job in terms of taking advantage of the United States and the trade agreements that have been established so far. He wants to redo them, and this is the first shot over the bow.
It is, again, important to point out the current trade agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico was negotiated by Donald Trump himself during his first term. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Now, Ontario's response to that trade war, pulling U.S. liquor off the shelves of the LCBO. For some bars, that means stock of American products is running low, as many fill their spaces to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Nama Weingarten checked in with some of those local businesses and some spirited revelers getting a head start on celebrations.
Irish or not, with their green trinkets and lucky charms, people flock to the streets to celebrate St. Patrick's Day all throughout this weekend, even in spite of the rain.
It's our first St. Patrick's Day, so we want to see how it looks like.
My son is actually playing in it. He's in the Western University Marching Band.
We come to the St. Patrick's Day parade every year. It's actually one of the best parades because there's not 3 million people.
Inside, the celebrations continued with beers in hand.
How was this weekend for you guys?
I am Irish. My great-grandparents were born in Ireland. It's so great to be here and celebrate my Irish heritage.
This is my first St. Patrick's Day. Amazing. I love it.
But celebrations aside, this St. Patrick comes at a rather unlucky time for Toronto bars, with American alcohol no longer being available because of the trade war with the U.S. This Irish pub has some American liquor in stock, but it's not clear what's going to happen when it runs out.
What I said to my manager is we just got to stick with the Canadian products. So we have to use our Canadian stuff and keep going.
That uncertainty with American alcohol didn't stop them from getting their pot of gold this weekend.
A lot of people asking for green beers, but we mainly pour our Guinness. That's our main top seller so far. We sold like 14 kegs.
It hasn't been as hard as people think. The guests are very supportive to Canadian products, but on a week like this, especially the last 5 days, Guinness and Jameson are all Irish, and that's kind of all we're focused on.
Celebrations are going to keep going on Monday with the official holidays in full swing. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
This was a scene on Waterloo's Marshall Street yesterday. Hundreds of students wearing green gathered to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Earlier this week, the city of Waterloo announced their plan to crack down on street parties, granting an injunction order for the weekend, which allowed police to detain, arrest, and charge anyone participating. Police have not yet confirmed if anyone was arrested, but a spokesperson told CBC News they encourage those planning to participate to do so in smaller gatherings at licensed establishments or at home. Sophia Kambalia joins us for a first look at the forecast. Sophia, a soggy day for some of those out celebrating St. Patrick's Day.
Farias, thank you. It was wet and wild and windy. Add another W adjective. Today it was also very warm. Overnight tonight, -8 though. Our temperatures have fallen like a rock down the well. Look at how high a place we came from though. Some of you cracked the 22-degree mark. Port Weller, Ontario, that's near St. Catharines. Mother Nature's poking a little fun here. It's a cruel joke. The same area, Port Weller, St. Catharines region, will have snow when you wake up tomorrow morning around the breakfast hour. You'll be wondering what month of the calendar it is. That's March for you. Some of you got anywhere from 10 to 20 up to even 40 millimeters of rain throughout this weekend. Remember, the ground is really saturated, right? We had the rumbles of thunder come through this morning. We have all the snow melt. The flood watch is high in some areas, including around the Grand River watershed where there is a flood warning, localized pooling, ponding and flooding. Let's look back at some of the winds we had over the past 24 hours, up to 80-kilometer-an-hour gusts, especially this morning. It was all the symptom, right, of this big potent cold front that sliced through the Midwest, the plains, and even the Gulf states in the U.S., leaving an outbreak of severe weather, over 50 tornadoes, over 35 people dead, and the northern edge of it made it over up top of Lake Ontario and Lake Erie and brought us those rumbles of thunder this morning, along with some potent storms earlier this evening in the nation's capital region. Now Monday, cool down is in place. Cold front comes back in, brings us right back down to seasonal. We'll feel actually pretty chilly for Monday morning, -2 with mainly sunny skies with a daytime high of 5. I'll tell you about the next warm up in the long range.
All right, thanks, Sophia. TTC bus riders may be asked to show proof of payment starting Monday as it expands its fare inspection program. But the agency says it's not about writing more tickets.
If we write you a $200 or $300 or $400 ticket, depending on what the charge is, we get zero. We much rather people pay their $3 rather than have to give them a $200 or $300 ticket.
Green says fare evasion costs the TTC about $140 million per year, with the agency seeing around 4 times as many people taking rides without paying than other transit services. It's money, he says, that would go towards cleaner stations, frontline staff, and service improvements. Welcome back. A SpaceX capsule has docked at the International Space Station, paving the way for 2 stranded astronauts to come home after a severely extended stay. Kobina Oduru has the story.
Onishi, the first Crew 10 astronaut through the hatch.
A journey more than 28 hours for this moment, months in the making, on the International Space Station.
You can hardly even put it into words. The ride up on the Falcon 9, orbiting the Earth for the last couple of days, it's been absolutely incredible.
The arrival of SpaceX's Falcon 9 marks the start of a new mission for 4 astronauts on the ISS, while providing a path home for 2 NASA astronauts who have been on a very extended stay.
It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive.
Let's get going. Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore left Earth in June of 2024. Their mission on the space station only meant to last 8 days, but their spacecraft was deemed unsafe, leading to a difficult decision.
We found some things that we just could not get comfortable with, putting us back in the Starliner when we had other options.
9 months later, that other option now clear, setting the stage for their return. But their time was well spent. Conducting scientific research and routine maintenance, now they are passing on that knowledge to the new crew. 4 astronauts from 3 countries who are expected to spend 6 months on the ISS.
We are so excited to now be officially part of the Expedition 72.
As a rookie, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I can't wait to get to work up here.
So I'm going to lead you down through the PMA.
Providing there are no setbacks, Williams and Wilmore are expected to start their journey back to Earth on Wednesday, touching down in Florida, and setting up reunions that have been months in the making. Kubino Duro, CBC News, Montreal.
Touchdown.
Bird watchers and photographers from across the province are flocking to Barrie for the chance to get a glimpse of a rare bird. The northern hawk owl normally lives further up in the boreal forests, but according to the Owl Foundation, it's been wintering in Barrie, and it's drawing a large crowd. Some birders traveled for hours from places like Ottawa to catch a glimpse and snap a picture. Barrie Today's Kevin Lamb got a look.
Everybody loves it. I mean, there were people there with their phones just wanting to see it and capture anything they could, and seasoned veterans of the wildlife photography world there, and everybody was basically in awe. It is a beautiful bird. It's great to see it, to visit the site. I think everybody should, at least at some point, if they enjoy wildlife, to go and catch a glimpse of it. And be respectful, keep your distance, and just enjoy what's there in front of you while it's there.
Sophia Gabalia is back with a look at your long-range forecast. Sophia, sounds like we're swapping those double-digit temperatures for some cooler ones.
All right, yes, there is a chill in the air. Do you want to see it in action? We parlayed the temperature changes over the past 24 hours. You can see that warm, humid air mass that brought all the wild, wet, and windy weather just be wrung out and pushed aside by this cold shot of polar Arctic air. Boy, did the warm temperatures win out for a little bit, though. We talked about the area near St. Catharines, Ontario, that has now set Canada's warmest temperature for the year, 22.2. It's a fall from grace. We were in this 15 degrees above normal zone, all that active weather along this temperature boundary. Now we get a taste of this cold that the prairies have been dealing with for the past couple of days. In fact, really, it's going to level out back down to seasonal for us. Monday morning, though, like the minus mid-teens, even colder with the wind chill for those of you in places like Timmins, north of the Nickel Belt. Seasonal values in parts of the GTA, some periods of sunshine, 5 degrees for the high Monday morning in Toronto, all the way down to Windsor, and pretty typical Monday overnight values. A little bit of snow to talk about north of the Nickel Belt up to Moosonee, up to 10 to 20 centimeters. Just some wraparound with all that cooler air and behind all the active weather that we had this weekend. Next system won't be until Tuesday into Wednesday. It brings up more of a southerly flow yet again, a little bit of a wintry mix, as you'll see north of the Georgian shores up to the Nickel Belt, but it'll also uptick our temperatures once again midweek. Look at that, mid-teens. Some light shower activity midweek, but then we have another fall from grace as that cold air battles back into next weekend. Watch this, going from the mid-teens to what feels like -4 into next Friday and Saturday, back down to seasonal, and the temperature roller coaster kicks back up again. This is a really typical March pattern, though, Farah, so you never know how to dress this time of year. That's the name of the game.
All right, thanks so much, Sophia. That is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching.